Hello and welcome to Rosberry Crafts, my YouTube channel where I share all my crafty adventures. Today is January 20th, 2023. My name is Roz and I live in Lake Country, British Columbia, Canada with my husband and my two kids who are 12 and 11. Today for you I have What Am I Wearing?, Finished Objects, Works in Progress, Events, and some chatter. Let's get started, shall we? What am I wearing? Well, today the weather has dropped again. The temperature is getting colder, so I am layering up the pieces today. I have a store-bought sweater from Old Navy that I like to wear with leggings, and I am wearing my Pebble Beach shawl. I am also considering putting on my leg warmers because I'm freezing and I work downstairs, and I'm also wearing wool socks. I'm wearing the even heel socks. I am not going to show you because it's awkward, but I will talk about the shawl that I'm wearing today. I believe I've worn it on a previous podcast. If not, here is a brand new one. I don't remember how long ago I made this. Many years ago, I think, is the answer to that question. It is a pattern by Helen Stewart called Pebble Beach, and it is a large crescent shaped shawl. I knit this with like a skein and a half, skein and 3/4. I do have a good chunk left over. It's up there, I think, or maybe up there. One of those two bins. It is a fingering weight shawl. I used yarn that I purchased from a friend who was destashing some yarn, and this is Yarn Indulgence in their MCN fingering weight. This particular base is not available anymore, but they do have a comparable base, I believe, but I will link to their website down below because they are still dyeing yarn. This color is called Orchid, and it is a very, I'm trying not to bump the mic, but it is a rich pink with gold flecks in it, speckles-ish, kind of, I don't know what you call it. It's pink and gold. Mostly pink, little hints of gold, but they're not speckles so much as like kind of sections. Anyway, I'm not doing this any justice. You can just look at it and see. The color is pretty true to what's showing up on my screen. Hopefully that's what's showing up on your screen. Anyway, so that is what I'm wearing today, and we will move on to finished objects. My only finished object this week, which is no surprise, is a pair of socks. Super long, tall socks. These are for my husband, Mike, and he likes his socks really tall. Apparently I can't speak this morning. Maybe I need more tea. Maybe I need more sleep. So I did these toe up, and this was from one skein of yarn, but I found the repeats so that they were perfectly matching socks. So they are almost perfectly matching socks. So yeah, I'm very happy with how these turned out. The yarn is Rico Designs in their Superba print. I'm sure there's a number, but anyway, they're just a fun color. He picked them out. I showed him on the ball band. It has like a little picture of what the pattern will look like. They're washed. They have not been worn yet, because I said I need them for podcasting and then you may wear them. So they've not been worn, but yeah, they've been washed and they're ready to go. And yeah, another pair of socks for him. The pattern that I use for all of his socks is Vanilla Reversed by Annie Fletcher, and he enjoys the heel on that. The only modifications I make is the top of the foot and the leg have a 3x1 ribbing on it. So it's hard to see in the pattern, but yeah, it's there. He just likes his socks to really hug his legs, and that works out well for him. I do have another pair of socks cast on those needles so they are staying warm, but that is a secret project that I will talk about another time. Moving on to works in progress. The first work in progress has been my main work in progress for the week, and I think that I've made some decent progress on this, and this is Tangled. This is the Love Note by Tin Can Knits. I am knitting this for my mother-in-law, and yeah, I've got some good progress on the sleeve here, and I have a whole sleeve done. So I think this is coming along nicely, and I'm going to pick up and knit the collar next because that's the only piece that's left besides weaving in some ends. And excuse me. And then I'll probably knit about an inch, and then I'm going to have her try it on and see how up high she would like it. And then we will see if we need to knit more. I did knit more than an inch on the bottom, so but it blends so nicely with it being fuzzy and everything. I'm not too concerned if the neck needs to be more or less. I did just over an inch on the sleeves. I think it was 9 rows and a little bit of a stretchy bind off, so it shouldn't be too snug. It should hang nicely. You'll see I still have some stitch markers left on here. So what I do for my sleeves is I mark where I start, and then I mark every 10 rounds. Then when I'm knitting the second sleeve, so this pink one here is where I started the sleeve, and I'm marking every 10 rounds with those markers. And so I just take from the previous sleeve every 10 rounds, put it on, and then when I'm done markers, I am done with the sleeve. And that way I get matching exactly perfect rows. These sleeves don't have any decreases, so if I was doing decrease rounds, I would mark each decrease instead of every 10 rows, and then that would give me the same sleeve. It doesn't always work because I forget to count or whatever it is that I'm doing, but it gets me closer. I do like doing sleeves 2 at a time, but this is very sticky yarn, and I'm down, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. I'm down to the last cake of yarn, and pulling from the inside and outside with this kind of sticky yarn is just a mess. So I decided 1 at a time, do what I can, and try to make it easy on myself. Did I talk about the yarn? I don't think I talked about the yarn. The yarn is Loops and Thread in their brushed swirl, and that is the Slate colorway. This is the same yarn that I used for my love note and my daughter's love note. I will make sure to get a picture when they're all finished of all 3 of us wearing our love notes at some point, and definitely share it with you guys either on Instagram or here. Yeah, so that is it for the love note. Next up, we are going to talk about the cowl that I'm working on. Now, I think these are the same 4 projects that I talked about last week. But I've gotten into a rhythm with this cowl, and it is the thing that I pick to knit on at the end of the day, because I understand what's happening, and I'm in the rhythm. I'm really enjoying it. So, you're just gonna see it for as long as it takes to finish it. So it started with this purple, and it moves into some pinks and then some blues. I can't remember where I was last week, but I am well into the greens now. I have 2 balls wound left, so I'm in the home stretch. So I am just working away on this. This will be a looped cowl. Basically keep knitting all the way to the end of the 24, and then we will graft it back to itself. And it's hard to see because it's all like on needles and stuff, but then it will be like a loop, and it'll be on the bias. So yeah. I am very happy with this. I have been doing the weave as you go method for the ends, but I've left most of them hanging out. I will trim them a bit, and then when I block it, I will trim them a bit more if any are sticking out. But yeah, so I don't have any ends to weave in, which is always a concern when you have mini skeins. But that's going to be the inside of the cowl, and if somebody sees it, I don't really care. You know, sometimes you see the back of a shawl, and that's okay. So while I have been finishing each of these, I've been winding off the yarn and adding it. Oh wait, before we get to the advent hat, the pattern for this one is the Colorful Geometry Cowl by this person here. And the yarn that I'm using is my Ginger Snap That Advent from 2021. And I will link to that and everything else I talk about down below in the description. Okay, now we'll move on to the hat. So I have been using the yarn as I finish the cowl. With that yarn, I have been adding it into the hat that I'm making out of this same yarn. Not to have a matchy-matchy thing, but just I really wanted to knit this hat, and I already had the yarn wound up, so it's ready to go. This is the Home for the Holidays, A Knitter's Advent by Carla Ray. I did do a double brim instead of the other brim. If you want to know more about that, you can look in previous episodes to find out more about that. And again, this is my Ginger Snap That Advent from 2021. So yeah, I did start with some gray that is not part of the Advent at all, just some scraps that I had, and then I moved into the purple. It's kind of blowing out a little bit, but so you hold two strands of fingering together, and then you get this lovely marled effect. And yeah, we're into the greens on here as well. Obviously not as far as with the cowl because I'm waiting for the next color. I've decided to do 2 rounds with each color. So I did 2 rounds with the purple and the dark purple that was left over from the gray. And then I did 2 rounds with like this purple and the pinky purple, and then 2 rounds with the pinky purple and this lighter pinky purple, and then 2 rounds with this and this. Hopefully that's making sense. So I just switch one of the yarns every 2 rounds. So each yarn gets 4 rounds in the end, but that is how it's going. Yeah. It's very interesting to see it, and yeah, I am loving it. It seems that it might be a little small, but it seems like it's gonna fit. Might be a bit snug, but also I haven't washed it yet. So, I mean, if it's snug, it's gonna fit somebody's head, probably Taylor's. So, yeah, it's looking good. Let's, oh goodness, what have I done? All right, I don't have anything else to say about that, and that is all my works in progress. So we will move on to events. For events today, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I am still participating in the Pigskin Party, which is from the Down Cellar Studio podcast. And yeah, that's ending early February. So basically anything that you started in September, I can't remember the date, but you can, I have linked to it down below so you can check out all the information there, and finish before the Super Bowl or before the Super Bowl ends, that you get imaginary points for those things. And if you use sponsored, you get more points and all that kind of stuff. And then you get entry for prizes. I just like to see how much I can knit during that time frame. It gives me a good kind of goal to figure out how much I knit in that for that event. I mean, if you win prizes, you win prizes, and if you don't, it's still a fun thing to do. Next up is the Northern Knits podcast anniversary cal. Sorry, that's a mouthful. I have not worked on that project at all. Maybe this weekend. And then I have the Imagine Knitting Cal, hosted by the Imagine Landscapes podcast. They have an audio podcast and they do a YouTube once a month. And this is basically anything that you have been dream knitting, make it reality. So knit the things you've been dreaming of. Yeah, that one is also hosted on Instagram and Ravelry. And the last one is, and I have not worked on that project at all. So the last one is We Have Yarn for That podcast. For their birthday, Mal, they have basically a project that's been languishing that you haven't worked on in a few months. Pick it up and try to finish it. And I'm entering my hinterland in that one, which was last year's Northern Knits make-along for their anniversary. Oh, so many things to finish. I really am trying to kind of focus on a few projects and get them finished. That's what's making me happiest right now. I definitely enjoyed casting on all the new things in January. Sometimes just getting that first step of something on the needle makes it just that much more it's ready to go. You know the yarn and the needles and everything is working and you can just pick it up and work on it. So I do appreciate the fact that I have a bunch of projects just ready to go, but I am feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the number of projects that I have. So when I feel that way, I just focus on a few and say, you know what, I'm just going to work on these for now. And that's all you guys are going to see from the yarny sections of this podcast. I am going to move on to chatter. For books this week, I have only finished one book. I'm back on my Sue Grafton kick, and I finished F is for Fugitive. So yeah, that's by Sue Grafton. She has like a whole series with a private detective. It's super fun, easy reads, cozy mystery. You know, there's some intrigue, some drama. There's not too much gore. There definitely is a little bit, like if you're sensitive to that at all, stay away from these. And they're from the like 80s and 90s, so they're old, but they're delightful. I love reading them. They're good. I'm listening to them on my Libby app from my library, so those are super fun. And speaking of my library, I have been missing making my own baked goods, and I really enjoy that as like a morning snack or an afternoon snack to have like a muffin or something, and it can be on the healthier side. It doesn't have to be like a cookie or anything or a brownie with anything with a lot of sugar in it, but I've really been missing that part, and I'm not super happy with the gluten-free breads that are available, and I've tried to make a few of my own, and they're just not quite the same. They just don't taste the same. So I've been doing a lot of research into what would make a good bread and what flours to use. Definitely a combination is what has been recommended, but I got a couple books from the library. This is the first one, and like seriously, that pie looks delicious. Also, these peanut butter cookies, I think they're almond butter, but yeah. So this is Bakerita by Rachel Connors, and it's 100 plus, no fuss, gluten-free, dairy-free, and refined sugar-free recipes for the modern baker. I have flipped through it, and yeah, I'm gonna have to tag quite a few in there. So I think that will be something I look at this weekend. And the other one, this is a book that I have looked at. I got the ebook, and I just wasn't really getting the idea of it. So this is Cannelle and Vanilla by Erin Aron, maybe? Goyoga. And so these are gluten-free meals. There are a couple desserts in there as well, but it's just good to have some different ideas on ways that you can make staples in your life that you would normally have gluten in them, and how to make them without gluten. So just some good ideas in that one. There's definitely kind of, there's a lot of vegetables and things, which is good. That's what I want out of a nice recipe, is some, easy ways to put vegetables and other things in there. Yeah, so those are 2 books, and I think I have 2 more to pick up at the library today. So that's going to be kind of my weekend, is kind of picking out some of those recipes and trying them. I, of course, will try to remember to take some video or pictures of anything that I do and share those with you so that you can find some good gluten-free recipes too if you're into that, or just some good recipes. The one thing I've noticed is if you just replace the flour with a gluten-free flour substitute, it just doesn't work out. So what I'm looking for is recipes that use an alternate thing that wouldn't necessarily require all-purpose flour. And, you know, so I'm not trying to replace things exactly. I'm trying to find new recipes that are naturally gluten-free by using like almonds and stuff like that. So I did over Christmas a shortbread with almond flour that was like a completely new recipe. It wasn't just taking my standard shortbread recipe and swapping it. It was, you know, it was meant to have almond flour, and so it was really good. And then, you know, but replacing just, you know, like your regular chocolate chip cookie dough with a gluten-free flour, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that is a long-winded way to say I have some cooking to do over the weekend and next week. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it has been a long work week. Past few weeks at work have been just really busy, you know, just lots going on. It's year end, so we know that like it's supposed to be busy at this time of year, so it's fine, but it's just, you know, it's just been a long week, and I'm looking forward to the weekend and kind of just relaxing and being at home and doing whatever I feel like. And so that will be nice. The other thing is that both my kids are sick. So they're not like sick. They just have colds, but it's, you know, they have to blow their nose all the time, and they have a bit of a cough, and it's that whole like, should we send them to school or not send them to school? If they stay home, they're not really, you know, they're not really sleeping, they're just hanging out at home instead of hanging out at school. So there's been a lot of talk about whether kids should go to school and activities and how sick they are. If they're sick enough to stay home, you know, but they're not so sick that they can't just sit around and play video games all day, which is also not great. So lots of discussion on that. The other thing that my husband and I have been doing is some early spring cleaning. You know, your house just, or wherever you live, things get cluttered, things get stuffed away. So we started with the utility room. You know, there's just lots of stuff piled on the floor, and because it's an unfinished space, it tends to collect spiders and other bugs and stuff. So we just cleaned everything up, got the floor all cleaned, swept it up, and now we're able to access more easily our hot water tank, and if anything goes wrong, you know, it's just one of those things that we just, well, we'll deal with it later, and then we just never dealt with it. So now it is dealt with and everything is put away properly. I have a whole giant pile of stuff to try and sell and get rid of or donate or whatever. So that also feels good. So that is it for this past week. And that is it for today's episode. With doing these weeklies, they are going to be shorter. Every time I look at the time that's recording on my video here, I just think like, oh, this one's so short, but that is fine. You guys don't want to hear me ramble on about nothing for another half an hour. This is good. This is good. Short is good because I'm getting you all the information in a more consistent fashion, and I don't feel like I'm lagging behind and having to figure out when to do this, because it's just part of my weekly routine. So that is really working for me. What else? Yeah, I think that's everything that I have to talk about today. So we will see you guys next time. Bye.